Welcome to Paleontology and Museum Collections. Let's pull back the curtain on what happens when a fossil from public lands makes it to the museum. The Paleontological Resources Preservation Act requires that paleontological resource collections be placed into an approved museum. Once delivered to the museum, fossils are prepared, cataloged, and placed in collections, where they are available in perpetuity for research and education. A fossil that is prepared in the museum is federal property, owned by the American public, and is available for research, fulfilling BLM's obligation to study the history of life and changing climates on planet Earth over deep time, in order to manage paleontology using scientific principles and expertise. And fossils in the museum are available for education, fulfilling BLM's statutory obligation to increase public awareness about the importance of paleontological resources.
So my job is to prepare, stabilize, and house vertebrate fossils, plant fossils, and sometimes even invertebrate fossils that we collect from across the American West and even around the world. That includes stabilizing fossils, putting the pieces of these fossils back together, and then getting them ready for research, exhibition, and education. As paleontologists, one of the big questions is, how do Earth's past ecosystems compare to our ecosystems today, and possibly even what our ecosystems can look like in the future? Collecting fossils is the best way for us to understand how these past ecosystems from climate change that's happened in the past can inform what that might look like for us in the future. One of the other big pieces of being a fossil preparator is building archival housing, and that can look like what we have behind me here. So these are called archival cradles. They're made out of archival materials, and they house our really big, oversized specimens that are super heavy. We don't want to just set them on the collection shelf. We want them to be in a cradle, as they're called. We also make things called cavity mounts, which are these little kind of foam home looking things that also serve to keep the fossil stable and protected as it's stored in our collection space. So as a fossil preparator and as being a part of the Denver Museum, one of the huge parts of our work is going out in the field and looking for new fossil localities or returning to pre-existing ones. Many of the places in which we work and collect wonderful fossils from are lands that are managed by the Bureau of Land Management. And because we're able to have access to all of these types of federal land, we're able to collect some really spectacular fossils and make them available for research. In the 7+ years of working here, the majority of the fossils that I've helped collect have come from land that is managed by the BLM.
A collections manager is like a fossil librarian. So when data comes in with the specimens, we keep track of that data and record those localities, record how it was collected, if it was legally collected, what permits it was under. And all that data goes into a database that we manage. So museums keep databases, we call them relational databases, and that tells us that you can keep a record here and a record there, and those two records point at each other. So when I want to know the locality of a fossil, I can easily go and look at the record for when it was collected, who collected it, what permit was it under. So our database holds thousands of records of BLM data. We have to keep track of the data, where it was found, the geographic coordinates, the permit, what was found there. Anything that has to do with that locality, we have to keep track of that, and then eventually we turn that data over to the BLM, so that when researchers come in and they ask me for a specific fossil, I can go to that drawer and find your BLM fossil for you.
I am responsible for the curation and research of over 100,000 paleobotanical specimens here at the Denver Museum. So these are all specimens of fossil leaves, flowers, fruits, and they're from the Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument, BLM land, that was collected in southern Utah. These fossils from the Kaiparowits tell us about what ancient landscapes were like about 76 million years ago during the time of dinosaurs. So they help us understand what the forests would have looked like, what things might have been eating from these forests. Fossil collections are so important in general because they teach us about deep time. They teach us about the past. And it gives us a perspective that goes beyond what we can learn in a single human lifetime or a few human lifetimes. It gives us kind of a natural laboratory to understand how life on Earth has changed over large spans of time. And we can take what we learned from, say, 100 million years ago, 50 million years ago, 20,000 years ago, and apply that to our future, because we can look at things like how the climate has changed or how life has evolved, and think about how it's continuing to evolve and how it's continuing to adapt to current climate change. Our partnership here at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science with the BLM is so important because it allows us to preserve fossils like these in perpetuity for the public.
When you see the public walk into a museum and stand under a dinosaur skeleton, their lives are changed forever. They will never forget that sight. Museum collections bring this huge wealth of resources from all across our nation into places that are accessible to the public, where we can learn, we can be inspired, and we can understand that we could have a role in preserving and protecting those kinds of resources for the future.
After a fossil is collected on Bureau of Land Management lands, it goes to the museum. The first thing that happens, it is prepared, where the rock is removed and it is glued back together, where professional fossil preparators make it ready for exhibition. Then the fossil is taken to the curators, where a collection manager will catalog it, accession it, document it, and make sure it's put away safely in climate control conditions, and where it will be available for research and education. Researchers will do all sorts of work on these fossils through time. They want to answer questions about the history of life on Earth and changing climates through time. Fossils are also available for education, fulfilling BLM's mandate to preserve fossils for future generations and to inform the public about the importance of paleontological resources.
Hi, could I borrow a fossil for a BLM education program?
Of course, our collections are for educational programming and research.